All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the weekly UK Sangha. I'm here with my good friends Victor and Robert. Um, I picked out a sutta to read today, and I was just about to mention that the language and words of these suttas, when read and contemplated and followed along, is kind of designed to be meditative. So the reading of the sutta isn't really for the purpose of like learning something intellectually. It's more meant uh, as a almost a guided meditation. So let the words sink into uh, the very essence of your mind, past the superficial critical thinking. Although we don't turn that all the way off. That's part of it. But the design, the at least the way I'm sharing the sutta is designed to strike you into the heart. So sort of evoke uh, the kind of powerful feelings that I get from reading it. So that's what I'm trying to communicate here. And then also, it's a good conversation starter. So there's lots of stuff that comes up, and if there's any comments, questions about the sutta or the contents of the sutta or an explanation of the sutta, we can talk about that. Or anything else unrelated to the sutta. It's all free game. Okay, so here we go. This sutta is it's from the Samyutta Nikaya 56.11, and it's the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation. And the title of it is called Setting in Motion the Wheel of the Dhamma. Like, see, like we can just stop at the title and just soak that in a little bit and just kind of like sit on that for a little. Like every single word is very kind of has some kind of like spiritual power to it. I don't know how to explain it, but setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. That just sounds like, I don't know, how does that make you feel, Victor?
Uh, sorry. There you go. I don't have specific words to describe it, but it's always good to just get your set of beliefs or the things that you try to practice and just read it off from like the text, right? Like a tradition and whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
pretty powerful.
it evokes like a sense of like authority and like order and like power to it. Like setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. That's like a power move. Like the Buddha is like setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. And if you think about it, that's what actually happened, because here we are today discussing what this guy had prophesized that he was gonna do. So like, so just think about it. Imagine you're you meditate and you discover truths for yourself in your own meditation, and then you start teaching. The truths are so profound, so powerful, that at first you think that nobody is going to understand it. But then you see that some people have little dust in their eyes and could possibly understand it. So you start teaching to the people around you. Just like think about it, like your coworkers, just people of your day and age, just people around you. And then you realize how powerful these teachings actually are, that you understand that this will proliferate into the future indefinitely. So you're setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma, and you're saying that's what I'm doing right now, and predicting that that will continue on into the future, instead of just sputter out like most spiritual teachers or teachings either get their content from another spiritual prophet or something, or it just kind of like sputters out and just goes into like obscurity. But so imagine what you discover meditatively is so powerful that you already know it's going to catch on and become a thing for centuries now. So yeah, so just reading the title, setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma, and then realize that that's another way to talk about cause and effect and dependent origination. So think about, instead of being obsessed about the story of me, so me as a person, and just the small box of only the things that happened in your life, realize all the things that led up to it. So much things happened since the beginning of the universe, or the beginningless beginning of the universe, and everything that happened throughout human history, and all of everything that went into play to lead up to this moment, right? It's a huge uh, body of things that had to happen in order for everything to fall perfectly the way it is right now. So just these things are like contemplative tools, right? We're contemplating something to get those feelings of awe going, like wow, that wow state, how, like, the things that you normally take for granted, like were you gonna say something?
No, yeah. Just I think like a few weeks ago, suddenly I just stopped in and I was like, okay, so what exactly is like daylight? It's basically this huge lamp that is just the sun, and like at night you're just facing just the emptiness of the universe. But like I tried talking to my coworkers about it, but it sounds a bit like crazy. But I'm like,
Yeah,
don't you it's so crazy because we just take like the day like for granted,
we
like
take
as a
it for granted.
concept.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's dumbfounding.
yeah, it's dumbfounding. Like what is really going on right now? We're standing on a giant rock that's spinning at an incredible velocity, orbiting around a giant ball of flame that you can't make direct eye contact with, or you'll go blind. And like, yeah, normally we just think, like, we don't think about this is just like the default environment. So obviously we filter all kinds of stuff out for practical purposes so we can get from point A to point B. But the point of meditation is to stop filtering stuff out to get from point A to point B. Stop and just look at the miracles that are unfolding before your very eyes. The miracle of life itself. It's no one. It's almost inconceivable, like unfathomable. Like, how is this happening? You know, kind of like the bigger questions, like why is there something rather than nothing? But here something is. I mean, the point is not to go into like a mental or philosophical like rabbit hole and just get lost in existentialism or something like that, like most philosophers. But the point is to evoke that sense of looking at things that you don't normally look at. So realizing the truth of reality uh, in its full broad spectrum without filtering all of the stuff out through the lens of me. So you just look at things with an unbiased lens. So let me get into the sutta. I think I did enough dancing around it. But okay, setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana. And you have to forgive me because normally this is like a new location for me. Normally it's just like Jetta's Grove. So I just roll through the words because I've read them so many times. But
It's kind of like the Suta's lore. It's always like starts like that, isn't it? It's
yeah,
always
exactly. You know, that's another thing.
squirrels grow over stupid.
Yeah, no, the suttas lore, like it's kind of like a lore. Like every sutta is formulated like you're reading like a lore of it starts off the way that it's introduced. Even the word "thus have I heard," like it doesn't even say like it doesn't even just get right into what the Buddha said. It's "thus have I heard." So it's not even saying this is what the Buddha said. He's saying this is what I heard the Buddha say. Because that's all you really had access to. If you're investigating the Dhamma correctly, realize that you only have access to what you hear, see, feel, touch, etc. So the only way that you can say what the Buddha said is by saying, "This is what I heard him say." Right? So each word has a meaning to it that's that has a specific purpose, why it's worded like that. And then obviously, like there's certain problems with some of the translations and stuff like that. Don't really get across the real meaning of the Pali, but I think for the most part, Bhikkhu Bodhi does a pretty good job. So you can really pay attention to the wording and get a lot of meaning out of that. Okay. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana. There the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus of the group of 5 thus. See, it's only 5 people there. So imagine talking to 5 people and saying like, this is setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma that's going to continue for thousands of years into the future. That's like some like fucking cocky ass shit to say. Like the balls on this guy. Like he's him. Like you're talking to 5 people, right? But he was right though. Here we are talking about it. Yeah. All right. Bhikkhus, these 2 extremes should not be followed by one who has gone forth into homelessness. What 2? The pursuit of sensual happiness and sensual pleasures, which is low, vulgar, the way of worldlings, ignoble, unbeneficial, and the pursuit of self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, unbeneficial. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagata has awakened to the middle way, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, which leads to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. Okay, so the middle way, not overindulging in sensual pleasures, but also not punishing yourself and starving yourself and practicing the other extreme of asceticism. So the idea is not to repress and punish yourself and avoid sensual pleasures at all costs because they're evil. That's the other extreme. But without overindulging and losing your mindfulness in the senses, and then going into running on the hamster wheel of sensual pleasures that never really comes to a satisfying conclusion. So every line of, even though you're getting like pleasure, let's say you're Charlie Sheen and you're doing cocaine, right? So even though you're getting like some amount of pleasure from the cocaine, with every single line comes the desire for the next line of cocaine, and it's never quite enough. So you find so you're just going to keep doing more and more cocaine until you find yourself in a huge pile of dukkha and misery. So the cocaine analogy is like an extreme analogy, but it's the same is true for all sensual pleasures. Okay, so you can enjoy your food, but if that's where you're seeking your happiness, solely from the food, you're going to develop an unhealthy eating habit. And you're just going to keep, like, whenever you feel uncomfortable, whenever you feel restless, you're going to go to the pantry and stuff your face, because that's your um that's what you indulge in. That's what the pursuit of sensual happiness and sensual pleasures. So it's not that the sensual pleasures are wrong, are bad. It's just pursuing your happiness in them is like a vulgar way to live. It's just like it's an endless game of arriving and never being satisfied. So
It's crazy how widespread it is, really, like in society, how it's just the norm. And I don't know, like you talked about food. You just go to all you can eat buffets and you just see like the suffering, right? It's as if like people they just need to eat just because they're there, and then just like 5 minutes later, everybody's just miserable and just feeling like stuffed and just guilty about having eaten so much. And it's just I don't know. It's crazy to
I
just
mean,
go
okay, like, I
into.
don't think there's anything, like, to be fair, I don't think there's anything wrong with all you can eat buffets.
Oh
I
no,
like
no, no. I'm just saying like but for me, it's just kind of like samsara, like just incarnate, in the sense that
yeah,
people are just deriving just dopamine.
yeah.
I'm not, I'm not judging people just go there. I go there myself. I'm just saying like the
Yeah,
attitude about
the
going.
problem is if your happiness lies in the you believe that your happiness lies in the all you can eat buffet. You believe that your happiness is going to come from the next bite and then the next one, and instead of going to, oh, oh, cool, I'm already happy. I get to enjoy a good time with some friends at all you can eat buffet. I get to
Yeah.
soak it in,
There's a
appreciate each
fear of missing out as well, that people just it's like, oh, I need, so I have to just try everything. But yeah,
yeah,
I agree with you. There's a difference there. They don't
yeah.
want to just go with a blanket statement.
Yeah, it just depends on where you're seeking your happiness from. Like, if you're already happy to be there, you sit down, you enjoy the act of sitting down, getting the menu, browsing all the options, right? But the
Yeah, makes
problem
sense.
comes when you're seeking the happiness from like whatever pleasures, dopamine or whatever is released when you're tasting the food. And then so you become addicted to that sensual pleasure that's just it's so fleeting. It's like even like sex is the same way. It's there one moment, it's gone the next. It's completely like so unsubstantial and quick of a pleasure that it's not gonna make you happy. But yeah, you can enjoy all you can eat buffet, especially if you're bulking, um, moving some weights in the gym. But it just depends on your physical activity. You're right, Victor. If you most of the people who are at an all-you-can-eat buffet do not need to be eating that much food. So it's you can see that it's kind of like the the way that they're eating is coming from some kind of suffering, and so I understand that. Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, no,
Sorry to anybody who just
no,
goes.
no, I understand where you're coming from. I just wanted to defend all you can eat buffets because they can be fun.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Um, okay, so the middle way. And what bhikkhus is that middle way awakened to by the Tathagata, which gives rise to vision, which leads to nibbana? It is the noble eightfold path. That is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. This bhikkhus is the middle way awakened to by the Tathagata, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, which leads to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. Now this bhikkhus is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, Union with what is displeasing is suffering. Separation from what is pleasing is suffering. Not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, the five aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. Okay, so I wanna focus on union with what is displeasing is suffering, and separation from what is pleasing is suffering. So it's not that the problem is that sensual pleasures are pleasing. When they're pleasing, it's fine. But what causes the suffering is when they're over, right? In the moment of sensual pleasure, it's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with enjoying food, enjoying sex, enjoying smoking a doobie, okay? Or smoking like I've seen Robert do on Sangha calls before. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the finer things in life or what not have you. The thing that causes the suffering is the attachment to them, because inevitably when they're gone, it's gonna suck when they're gone, because then what are you left with, right? And the same is true for relationships. So I heard Dhammarato mention on the last Sangha call, the Dhamma is about learning to say goodbye happily. So learn to say goodbye to all the things that are pleasing or displeasing happily, because everything is impermanent. So if you can just keep a wise mindfulness about things, that when it's here, you know it's going to be gone, so you don't get latched onto it. You don't make it your source of happiness. Uh, you don't make whether or not you get a text back from this girl your conditions for what if you can be happy or not, because you may be getting a text back for weeks or months, but then maybe the day comes when you stop getting a text back, and then now you suffer because what you had is now gone, um, which you should have known was going to happen, is what I'm saying. So learn to say goodbye happily, and then you can enjoy what life brings you without being attached to it. And you can just be spontaneous. There's always every day is a new day. Every new things can happen, right? If you're too busy worrying about what you lost from yesterday, you're gonna miss what's right before your eyes that could happen today. And it's true for every single moment. Um, so yeah, so changing the mindset about where do we derive our happiness is fundamental Dhamma. Not to get what one wants is suffering. So that's just the opposite of losing what you have, is wanting something that you don't have, which is coming in the future. Then you won't be paying attention to what is here, what you do have. You have this breath. You have the breath of this moment, and you can just enjoy breathing, right? If you're obsessed with some kind of sexual fantasy or something, and you don't get what you want, maybe you become repressed. You start becoming one of those guys that like hate women or something, and it manifests in all kinds of dukkha ways, instead of appreciating this breath that I have right now. You're having sex with the universe as we know it. Okay, like what is breathing? Like that's another thing, Victor, we're talking about taking things for granted. Breathing is the biggest thing we take for granted, right? We're literally exchanging energy, or getting we're deriving oxygen from the atmosphere around us, using that to make chemical reactions in our body to produce energy and life vitality and consciousness. So consciousness is dependently originated from breathing. You stop breathing, you're gonna pretty soon you're gonna go unconscious, right? So you realize that the fuel of your own consciousness, the very reason you are awake to this moment, is because every single breath that you take. So that brings like a very visceral understanding of how how good it is to actually breathe. And it never fails you. So you're never not breathing until you die, right? But when you die, it's not going to be your problem anyways. So you find yourself in a stressful situation, there's always an out. The out is the breath. Just take a breath. Okay. You don't know what to do. You feel confused. Well, the first thing to do is just breathe. Okay. That's the foundation of practice, is breathing. And then you can relax your body when you get out of your head and get out of the thoughts that are causing so much agitation and mental suffering, and just breathing. You can start to relax and let go of uncomfortable tensions in the body.
Sorry.
Oh, were you going to say something?
Yeah. Is there a way to... How should I experiment with it? Maybe see how deep I can breathe? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, so the more you experiment it with, the better. Because normally we breathe like unconsciously, right? We don't even think about how we are breathing, how much air we are breathing. So um, the point is, you shouldn't make a rule for yourself that I need to be breathing in one way or another, but experiment with the breath like a toy. So you can try out, what does it feel like to take deeper breaths? What does it feel like to take short breaths? And just, run your little experiments and see how the body reacts and see how the mind reacts too. And then you may go ahead.
No, crap. I interrupted again.
No, it's okay. I like being interrupted.
I actually heard something about taking more quick breaths, like very fast, like... What is that? Have you heard anything about that? I don't
Yeah.
really understand what that point of that kind of breathing is.
That can get some energy going. So that's often a technique to kind of oxygenate the brain and get like arouse some wakeful energy, which is useful for meditation. I mean, I'm really exaggerating the breathing so it comes across in the video. So I'm like trying to make a lot of noise when I do it. But breathing like that, it's a good antidote to drowsiness or dullness. So if you find yourself drowsy in your meditation, play around with taking some short, fast breaths. Before you know it, you'll be wide awake. Your body has surpluses of energy that you have full access to. You just have to bring it out. The same thing would happen if you get, like, for instance, if you go in a cold plunge or like an ice bath, that will physically change the way that you breathe. It will force you to breathe differently. And the chances you'll be so cold that you won't be thinking about anything else but breathing. You'll be because you're in an ice bath. So put yourself in a mental ice bath and breathe that way. Not as a rule, but just experiment, play with it as a toy. Try it out, see how it feels. So I think it's better, instead of Avery asking what the purposes of that is, try to discover what the purpose is for yourself. See what it does. So the practice of meditation or practice of the Dhamma, it's a learn by doing activity. And then you may find, I like this rhythm of breathing. This gets me into like I get in a rhythm, and so I can kind of just follow this rhythm, and it leads to my mind calming down and coming into my senses. So the point is to experiment until you find that rhythm, and then you can use that rhythm to get yourself into a state of samadhi. You can unify the mind with that rhythm that you created, kind of like the rhythm of a drummer in a band. he starts the beat with the drum, and that's the bass line of the music that everyone else riffs off. And so a beautiful song is created. So jhana and meditation is similar. So start with the beat, the rhythm of the breath, and then the piti and sukha. The piti and sukha is like the guitar solo and the guitar riff and the bass line. The bass line is like the sutta. I mean, the bass line is like the sukha, and the PT is like the electric guitar. Getting those high notes, getting that feeling going, and the bass line is just like cool and like relaxed and calm, like dun 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 dun. So that's just a little music metaphor, but yeah, play around with it, Avery. Okay, let's get back to the sutta.
Just one last question regarding that.
Yeah.
How to deal like with boredom in like when dealing with breath in the context of having had so much there's just so much stimuli like in the world, and just that the breath seems like too subtle or simple or not really giving that high.
Exactly. So how to deal with boredom is literally exactly what we're talking about at the beginning of the call. Like boredom is a mindset. It's taking for granted what is going on, because there's nothing to be bored about here. Like whoa, what the fuck is this? What is going on? It's amazing. Like how many thousands of mental processes are going on right now that you can watch and be entertained by? So many things. Your thoughts are going here, thoughts are going there, attention moving around, sights, sounds, touch, feels, all these things. It's a flood of information. You're just filtering it all out, so you get bored. So the point is to look at what's going on, that you'll never be bored. So boredom is kind of like an attitude or a mindset.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is that a good answer, or does that make sense?
No, it is.
Okay.
It's I think it's a matter of like also habit and practice and just sticking with it.
Yeah, I mean,
just not having the victim mentality as well that Dhammarato sometimes talks about. It's like, oh, poor me, I can't follow my breath, I can't be entertained by my breath, and you just get stuck in this just loop of...
it's just the attitude that you have about it, or the thoughts that you have about it. You can change the thoughts into being, wow, yippee, this is amazing. Like, this is very entertaining. When you're a young child, you probably, let's say you're in your room by yourself. I mean, you're probably still bored a lot of times when you're a child, but a lot of times you would just get lost in your own imagination and create your own fun inside yourself, right? But when we grew up with all these rules that, oh, we can't just have fun by ourselves. We need to go to hang out with other people. We need to do a hobby. We need something to occupy us in order to have fun. We didn't have those rules when we were kids. I remember I could have fun and entertain myself for hours just within my own imagination. So it's really a mindset and like the rules that you give yourself in your own mind. And the trick is just waking up to when you're doing that. So wakey when you're creating your own boredom. Okay. Now this, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. It is this craving which leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there, that is, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for extermination. So craving for existence and craving for extermination is just kind of like a weird way to say, ooh, I like this, and now I've had enough of this. So it's like, have you ever been to a movie that you're excited to watch that movie, and then there's like kind of like a boring part of the movie, and you're like, okay, I kind of want this to like get over with, like I'm kind of over it. So the craving for existence is when you're happy about going to that movie or excited for the movie, and then the craving for extermination is when you kind of like got bored of that movie and wanted to be done with. And so it's the same is true for life. You come into life like as a kid, all happy to be alive, and then you get disenchanted and sick of life, and you want it to be over. Or like same with this conversation. So we join the conversation. We're excited for a start. We may go on for a while, but like at a certain point, we'll get sick of it and want it to be over. So the mind works in cycles in this way. It wants something and then doesn't want it anymore. Let's see. Now this, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that same craving, the giving up and relinquishing of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. So it's kind of just an illusion, and when you see past the illusion, you're able to let go of it. So even when all of these cycles of minds and patterns of minds and wanting things and not wanting things are going on, you see that they're impermanent, non-self, and suffering. So you're not really fooled by it, and you don't take it so seriously. You realize it's here one moment, gone the next. Don't take it personally. Don't take the happenings of existence personally, because when we do take it personally, that's what causes our suffering. Now this, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the cessation. Okay. Now this, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. It is this noble eightfold path, that is right view, etc., right concentration. This is the noble truth of suffering. Thus, bhikkhus, in regards to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. This noble truth of suffering is to be fully understood. Thus, bhikkhus, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. This noble truth of suffering has been fully understood. Thus, bhikkhus, in regards to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. This is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. Thus, bhikkhus, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. This is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. Oh, this noble truth of the origin of suffering is to be abandoned. Okay, so we're going through the Four Noble Truths here, and it starts with the noble truth of suffering, which is pretty obvious. I mean, I think that's why we're all here, because we, we've suffered and we want to find a way out, right? I don't think any of us would be here if it wasn't for suffering, right? The big kahuna, the reason why we start the spiritual path to begin with. So we already know that one. This noble truth of suffering is to be fully understood. So we know it, but we can always understand it more. And then the noble truth of suffering has been fully understood. So we really see what suffering is all about, how the mind creates it, where does it come from? That's the next one, is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. So when we really know the origin of suffering, then we can abandon the origin of suffering. So that leads to the good stuff, the good part. This noble truth of the origin of suffering is to be abandoned. So that's what leads to the third noble truth. Once you know where suffering comes from, you can take the right effort to stop doing that and stop creating that suffering. And then let me move on. Thus, bhikkhus, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. This noble truth of the origin of suffering has been abandoned. Thus, bhikkhus, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. This is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. Thus, bhikkhus, in regards to things unheard before, there arose in me knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. It's gonna repeat over and over again. I'm gonna see how fast I can say it. This noble truth of the cessation of suffering is to be realized. Okay, I like how it words that. So the noble truth of the cessation of suffering is to be realized. So that word realized. What does it mean to realize something? Like if you're playing a prank on someone and you're standing behind them quietly, at a certain point, that person will realize someone is standing behind them. So that's the same way that you realize the cessation of suffering. You awake to it. So you're asleep, and then you come awake to the cessation of suffering. You can also yeah, I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else, but I just forgot it. All right, I'll keep going.
I just now, like, again, I think realization can happen many times. Like, you can realize something you can realize something that's like essentially the same concept again and again, but you can realize it differently every time. Like just now, you were talking and I've been kind of spacing out, and I realized, oh yeah, wait, I'm breathing right now, and I get to play with my breath however I want. So
Yeah,
I'm bugging it again, but yeah.
exactly. So that's kind of how that's practicing correctly. Is instead of we realize something once and then think we got it, and we make it an object and make it a solid piece of knowledge that, oh, I've realized this, now I'm enlightened or whatever, right? You become a guru, charge people $500 for your retreats in Costa Rica. Anyways, the point is to realize over and over again, this is suffering, this is the origin, this is the cessation, and this is the way leading to the cessation. And you realize it experientially. So it's not like you realize it once and then you're good. No, you realize it as much as you need to, as much as is here. So what is the suffering that is here? What is it? How is it coming about? So what am I doing that's kind of proliferating that suffering? And then, okay, once I know what I'm doing that's proliferating that suffering, I can stop doing that and then realize the end of that suffering. And yippee, wow, this actually works, okay? And then before you know it, suffering arises again. Okay, rinse and repeat, start over. That's the practice. So it doesn't mean we realize the end of suffering many times throughout the day, actually. It's just a normal, someone who's not practicing the Dhamma doesn't even realize that they're realizing, right? So the more that we pay, like, the more attention we pay to our experience and the way that we feel on the inside, which can be scary at times, because you start to wake up to all the dukkha that's going on. But the more that we do that, the more that we can realize how to bring an end to the suffering that we are internally creating for ourselves. This noble truth of the cessation of suffering has been realized. This noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. Thus, bhikkhus, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. This noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering is to be developed, right? So the noble truth of the way leading to the end of suffering, namely the first three noble truths, is to be developed. So the last noble truth is about developing the prior three noble truths of recognizing, oh, this is dukkha, this is how it's being created, and this is how I can stop creating it. And then the fourth one is just developing that and realizing the way to develop those fundamental principles. This noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering has been developed. So once you keep developing it, the developing becomes developed, and it creates an inertia for it that starts to rewire your programming. So if you do this enough times, it starts to do it on its own. That makes sense. Just like the habits of suffering. So all the habits of your suffering, you've been doing it enough times that you just do it unconsciously. So it's the same with the practice. So you do the practice enough times, it's going to start to have its own inertia. You're just automatically doing it now. So that's what it means to have developed the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So long, bhikkhus, as my knowledge and vision of these four noble truths as they really are, in their 3 phases and 12 aspects, was not thoroughly purified in this way, I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world with its devas, Mara and Brahma, in this generation with its ascetics, Brahmins, its devas and humans. But when my knowledge and vision of these four noble truths, as they really are, in their 3 phases and 12 aspects, was thoroughly purified in this way, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world with its devas, Mara, and Brahma, in this generation with its ascetics and Brahmins, its devas, and humans. The knowledge and vision arose in me. Unshakable is the liberation of my mind. This is my last birth. Now there is no more renewed existence. This is what the Blessed One said. Elated, the bhikkhus of the group of 5 delighted in the Blessed One's statement. And while this discourse was being spoken, there arose in the Venerable Khandana the dust-free, stainless vision of the Dhamma. Whatever is subject to origination is all subject to cessation. All right, so he realized impermanence in that moment. Whatever has a beginning has an end. And our friend Michael from the chat mentioned that Ajahn Pasano says a better translation from the Pali for this is all arising phenomena are all already ceasing phenomena. So everything that's arising experientially is already ceasing. Everything that happens is already coming to an end. The moment that it happens is the moment it's ending. Every thought is like this, every mental formation, every feeling too, every bodily sensation, every sound. And when the wheel of the Dhamma had been set in motion by the Blessed One, the earth-dwelling devas raised a cry. At Varanasi in Deer Park in Isipatana, this unsurpassed wheel of the Dhamma has been set in motion by the Blessed One, which cannot be stopped by any ascetic or Brahmin, or Deva or Mara, or Brahma, or by anyone in the world. So no one can fucking stop this. It's just a force of nature, just reality unfolding. Like nobody can stop it. It's yeah. I mean, I like that. It's pretty cool. Okay, let's see. Having heard the cry of the earth-dwelling devas, the devas of the realm of the four. Okay, more lore, right? Right, Victor? Here we. We got some.
Somebody's gonna get enlightened at some
Yeah.
point.
We got some juicy lore here. Okay, having heard the cry of earth-dwelling devas, the devas of the realm of the four great kings. Okay, the realm of the four great kings. That's some lore right there. Raised a cry at Varanasi. This unsurpassed wheel of the Dhamma has been set in motion by the Blessed One, which cannot be stopped by anyone in the world. Having heard the cry of the devas of the realm of the four great kings, the Tavatimsa devas, the Yama devas, the Tusita devas. So these are essentially like angels or godlike beings that are abiding in heaven realms. The Yama devas, the Tusita devas, the Nimanarati devas, I'm not even going to try to say that, devas, the devas of Brahma's company raised a cry at Varanasi and Deer Park at Isipatana. This unsurpassed wheel of the Dhamma has been set in motion by the Blessed One, which cannot be stopped by any ascetic or Brahmin or Deva or Mara or Brahma or by anyone in the world. Thus at that moment, at that instant, and at that second, the cry spread as far as the Brahma world, and this 10,000-fold world system shook, quaked, and trembled, and an immeasurable glorious radiance appeared in the world, surpassing the divine majesty of the Devas. Then the Blessed One uttered this inspired utterance. Khandana has indeed understood. Khandana has indeed understood. In this way, the Venerable Khandana acquired the name Ana Khandana, Khandana who has understood. All right. That's some good stuff there. What do you guys think about that?
I wish I understood. Like, what are the devas? Like, what are some of these things that are in these suttas? I don't. What is
The
this
devas
lore?
are so like the devas are essentially like angels or godlike beings. So maybe like if someone talks about like smoking a bunch of DMT and breaking through and seeing like the machine elves or something. So like these so these like beings, whatever, they may be real, they may not be, but they appear in every culture. So you can find you can find these types of beings in the lore of every it's just part of the human psyche. So
Interesting.
it's part of the archetypes of the unconscious or whatever. It's part of the human psyche, and what the Buddha is doing here is using these tools of the human psyche to invoke the power of this, how powerful this teaching actually is, that it extends outward to everything.
So that's why he mentions like gods such as like Brahma and
Yeah. So the fundamental truths of the Dhamma apply to this realm and any realm you can imagine, any realm that might exist or might not exist.
Whoa.
So that's kind of the significance of what is being said here. It's not saying that like you need to believe in all these like creatures or whatever.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I love Scott's meme-like preachings. Like kind of like it's just the best. But it's also like adequate like for our context, and that makes it just awesome. It's just not like a dreary and
You got to
just
speak in
dry.
the language of the times. So that's why I speak in memes. So it's like yeah, I mean, that's the language that I grew up in is memes. And so I talk in memes.
Yeah, it makes it awesome. Thank you,
And like
Joe.
yeah, so I'm guessing so do you guys. Like
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. Memes, the Dhamma is a meme. It really is. So what does
memetics is a very large field.
Yeah, memetics. So the Dhamma is one of the biggest memes of human history ever. So like what does setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma means? Meme. What does it mean? It's starting a meme, right? He started a meme and how does a meme spread? So it's one guy posts this one image, and then people see it, and they spread it everywhere. That's the same way the Dhamma is. The only problem is the memes become distorted and stale. Like a group of people who aren't funny get a hold of the meme and they ruin the meme. That's like what happened to the Dhamma too. So all these people who don't really understand it, they don't get the original meaning or the original joke. They repeat it, but in their own unfunny, shitty way, which is most of religion, right? Most of Buddhism. So the idea is to revitalize the original power of the meme. Okay, so memes go in cycles. There's like meta ironic periods. So there's the original meme. The meme gets ran into the ground, right? It's not funny anymore, and then it comes full circle. The meme becomes funny again because of it's so ironic just to have that meme. So that's kind of like what we're doing with the Dhamma now, with the noble Dhamma. So the actual Dhamma that leads to the end of suffering, not just believing in this and that and practicing karma and rebirth and stuff like that. But yeah.
Memes.
Okay, so I think that's a good note to end it on. Is unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about. This has been a lot of fun. Any last words, Victor?
No, just thank you. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
really
no, thank you guys for coming. And Robert, are you there?
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott. I really enjoyed this. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. And Avery, it's good to see you.
I'm glad I came.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, go spread the wheel, or I mean, go practice the wheel of the Dhamma in your moment-to-moment life. All right, guys, have a good moment. Bye-bye.
Great to see you guys. Take care. Bye.